I'm Brian Gentile. I'm Jaspersoft's president and CEO, and I'm thrilled to be here, honestly. My first time to Melbourne. I've been to Australia, Sydney, mostly on all previous journeys down under. And I have to say, I'm just disappointed that I'm going to be in and out of Melbourne without getting a chance to look around. It's a very impressive place. And I'm hoping to come back, maybe not so much on business, but on vacation, as you might imagine. Looks like a great place to be. We had some fun in Sydney yesterday. And we've had some fun in general with this discussion about the new IT world that I want to share with you. It was debuted in San Francisco at the Jasper World Conference the first week of February. And I think it's met with acclaim and positive response, mostly because it speaks to precisely what's going on today in this new network-centric world that we all live in. And what I try to do is pull it into a business intelligence topic and try to make it relevant for what we need to do as business intelligence professionals. So let me start by just explaining what's going on in different circles of this new network-based world that we live in. And the first element, the first strata that I'll start with comes from McKinsey, well-regarded, world-renowned research organization that in the last few years has been doing some primary research in the area of Web 2.0, techniques inside the enterprise to make an enterprise, an organization, more competitive. For the first time in late 2010, McKinsey uncovered relationship between the incidence and use of Web 2.0 techniques, tools, technologies inside of an enterprise, and that enterprise's market strength, market leadership, ability to gain market share, and its ability to lead and create greater value for its shareholders. For the first time, there was a strong correlation, probably because McKinsey postured, probably because these technologies now have been available long enough that we're seeing the rapid productivity gains that would likely come from them as they diffuse through an organization even of large size. So the start here is to think about this at an organizational level, almost a socio-economic level, and think about how Web 2.0 techniques can make an enterprise more competitive. And at the same time, Geoffrey Moore, of Crossing the Chasm fame and Inside the Tornado and all the things that the Chasm group has become so well known for. At the same time, Geoffrey Moore has talked about the use of this Web 2.0 techniques as it relates to the new IT stack, the IT world that we live in, moving from the previous model of a very vertically integrated data-centric stack approach to a very distributed network-centric stack approach, where service layers emerge that allow for the greater agility and flexibility of creating information systems that can adapt to not only a new pace of business, but a new volume of business, really. And so he talks about stratification of compute engines into infrastructure services that are made available, compute processes that understand the virtual environment that we now have to live in and the virtual sharing of resources inside of this network-centric data world. And then this business layer that better be pretty adept at delivering tools, information, insight to a variety of end users, not only by role, but by device type, mobile especially. And for the first time, talking about business intelligence as a genuine business layer at this level as a service that has to be delivered. So Moore brings us into this network-centric IT stack view. What I would like to do is bring it into the BI world at the same time. So don't just stop at the network-centric IT stack, but think about what's happening in the world of BI. Because business intelligence is at once affected by these trends, and it is also affecting those trends at the same time. The new world of enterprise IT is emerging, where these new business and technology and user requirements are driving new use cases for us all. We have to think about the implementation of business insight differently now in 2011 than even we did in, say, 2006, just 5 years ago. And it's because these fundamentally new business, technology, and user requirements are on top of us. What's happening is the traditional BI platforms that we've all grown up with in the last 20 years are really poorly suited for this new network-centric distributed scalar world. They're designed really for the first and second generations of business intelligence usage. And indeed, they serve those roles very well. But just as they served those roles so well through the 2000s, they no longer are serving as well as they did. And you could argue that while they may have led those first two generations, the business objects and Cognoses of the world or oracles of the world, won't be able to lead the next generation because they're prevented to by these poorly suited architectures and cost models that they're straddled with. And so this new requirement for a new BI platform that is built on this new IT world, or built with a deep understanding of how it behaves, is required. So what I'd like to do is, using Geoffrey Moore maybe as the backdrop, I'd like to talk just briefly about each of these three layers: the new consumer-like expectations that are coming, new user requirements that are driving this new end-user consumer-like behavior, the cloud as an emblem or a metaphor for the flexibility in the architectures that are now required, especially in IT systems and business intelligence systems, the cost models that are radically changed from even 5 to 10 years ago, with which we all must work, and then lastly, the right skills and the right platform that's now required, because it's so different than before. It's almost like we have to define them once again. We have to define what are the skills required and what is the right definition of the BI platform required. So let's start at the top and look at the new user requirements that are becoming so consumer-like in their approach. And I'm going to start with some data. Big surprise for a BI guy, right, to start with some data. This is data taken from the US Census Bureau, the United States Census Bureau, freely available. I just simply downloaded it from their website, graphed it here in Microsoft Excel, and it's showing two really important periods in US history. Now, I'm choosing to use US data, but I could have just as well chosen data from Australia or any developed economy through these periods, any advanced economy through these periods. Because the two periods here that are highlighted are, first, the period between about 1946 and 1964, an 18-year span in the US referred to as the baby boom. And then another period, which is more recent, between the years of about 1988 to 1993, a period in demographic circles referred to as the echo boom. The echo boom is a reflection of the baby boom because the individuals born in these periods in the echo boom are essentially the children of the baby boomers or the children of the baby boomers, depending upon, it was an 18-year baby boom span, so there could be two generations there moving through the demographic cycle. First thing to point out is the baby boom in the US was genuinely a baby boom, enormous by any standard in its scale. More than 4 million live births. The top data is absolute live births. The bottom data is indexed or relative births per 1,000 in the population. Important because the US population doubled in this time frame from 1950 roughly to the 2000 era, moving from about 150 million residents, citizens, to more than 300 million on the far right in the 2006 timeframe. So important to say, wow, a lot of births occurred right after World War II. A generation came back and got productive. And there was a baby boom for sure. Now, I'm a baby boomer. I was born at the end of this period, end of the period of the baby boom. And my children are echo boomers, by and large. Important because what's happening now, not only in the US, but in many of the mature economies, is we're seeing baby boomers retiring now in bigger and bigger numbers every year, starting in 2009, to be replaced more rapidly by echo boomers. This is an important phenomenon. I'm going to explain why. Maybe the most important is that this is the new knowledge worker. I like to think of one of these here as one of my teenage children pretty soon. They bring to the workplace expectations that are completely different than the generations that preceded them. I'm a baby boomer. I'm what's called a digital immigrant. I've grown into computers and technology during the course of my life and my career. I've become accustomed to them, in fact, even reasonably expert at them. But make no mistake, I wasn't born with them. My children were born connected. They're digital natives. They have been bathed in bits their entire lives. They know nothing but connectedness and the internet. And if you ever feel distant from them, if you have teenagers, it's because they are wired differently. They behave differently. And try as we might, they are not going to change. They're going to bring lots of new expectations to the workplace, expectations that we do not possess as baby boomers. And if you have teenage children, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Here's an example from my own life. I call this a day in the life of my daughter, who is 17. Here's a screenshot of her average computer day. Now, I'm not going to explain all that's going on, because those of you who have teenagers, you recognize a lot of these different web-based screens up here. But I'm going to tell you a short anecdote about my daughter. It's very real and had a very important impact not only on me but on Jaspersoft. The setting is my living room, and it's evening, and my daughter is working on science homework. Her assignment at that moment is to chart some data from some series of science experiments she had conducted, with the goal of creating a chart that she could copy and paste onto a piece of paper and print out and paste onto a poster board that she would then use to explain to her class the results of her experiment in a presentation format. Make sense? And at this moment in my living room, she's struggling with Microsoft Excel. She's trying to get the axis labels correct and in the right order and the chart to look right to show the data properly. And she's struggling with it. You know, we've all been there. I mean, nuances of how to get Excel to do something like this. And I'm looking over her shoulder as a baby boomer, wanting to jump in and help. And before I could, she reaches a quick point of frustration where she actually quits Microsoft Excel. And she goes to Google. And she types in free charts. She goes to the first link, which presents her with a little table that's a data entry table. She puts in her data very easily because it was not sophisticated data. And she labels the axes properly next to the table. And then a big button appears below that table and it says, chart it. She clicks on it. It produces a very nice looking 3D bar chart. She copies, she pastes it, she puts it into her, it prints into her paper, and she prints it, and she's done. Now, why is this remarkable? From a baby boomer's perspective, it's remarkable for the first reason. I would not have thought of leaving Microsoft Excel and going to a web service to produce the simple chart that she was desiring at that moment. What would I have done? I would have struggled with Excel to make it work, right? It was a matter of pride, if nothing else. But that was not her thought. Her thought was, this tool is not doing the job for which I am using it. I'm going to get rid of it and get something that's simple, powerful, but will do exactly what I need at this moment. Her patience level was very low. The other takeaway from this is that those tools and software programs that do not get in the user's way, but instead enhance their day, are going to be the ones that thrive in this new consumer-like environment. And those that do not will suffer greatly. You know, I've been on record before, and I don't mind saying something controversial in this setting, in that I worry about companies like Microsoft because they have never really gotten it as it relates to this kind of behavior that I've described, and I don't believe that the future is going to be much different. And over time, I think they're going to become less and less relevant in this web-based, network-centric world where there is very little patience for understanding how things work, and the consumption of something happens at the speed of thought. What are the chances that my daughter is going to have any interest in purchasing a product like Microsoft Excel? It certainly isn't a thought for her because she's obviously going to a Google search to solve the need whenever she has the inkling. So information systems expectations from this new workforce that is entering in greater and greater numbers, replacing the aging baby boomers, is going to have an indelible and fundamental effect on the workplace. And again, we can either embrace it and understand how to design information systems that will appeal to this new wiring, or we will suffer and struggle at great peril. The 4 things that I've teased out and written about in a number of circles that are the most important are listed at the bottom of the screen that include, in other words, what I'm saying here is it isn't just Facebook and Twitter and YouTube that are driving consumer-like behavior. It's the principles and the way these applications behave that is so engaging to an always wired echo boomer. It is about ubiquitous access, always being able to access that service regardless of where you are. Elegant presentation, so it behaves in a way that doesn't get in my way. Powerful customization, because I want it to behave in a way that is unique to me. And I should at least have the power of being able to mildly customize it, if not more. And then lastly, collaboration, because I'm part of a bigger sphere of work. And if I can't collaborate and share what I'm doing, it becomes less useful to me. These are traits of any good consumer-oriented web service with which these echo boomers are today deeply engaged. How many of you are on Twitter? A few of you? Maybe a little more than that? Good. I'm on Twitter. You know, at first I kind of didn't get it. Now I do get it. I understand the usefulness of it, but it's weird. I mean, one of my favorite jokes is Jerry Seinfeld, who said about Twitter, he said, remembering, you know, the 140 character limitation and all that, he said, why would I say deep things to a few people when I could say almost nothing to everyone? Classic Seinfeld.